I was having a lot of back pain for almost more than a year, and it continued as a regular back pain and physiotherapies, some massages here or there, and nothing helped till I started getting a sensation in both my arms. And that's when my GP told me that, it's time, I think you should get MRI done, and we should find out why is this pain not going. And then, the tests followed, and finally, multiple myeloma was diagnosed. Initially, it was thought to be TB.
Thank you, Somesh, and for coming to this session that we do on a monthly basis to discuss, in general, cell and gene therapies in India, but also CAR T cell therapy and advanced cell therapies for cancer. So Somesh, maybe you can introduce yourself and then maybe tell us your story.
Yeah. I'm Somesh Sabhani. I'm based out of Mumbai, and I'm a professional. I work for Gulf Oil International, which is a Hinduja Group company. And I was diagnosed with coming to multiple myeloma part straight away. I think that's fine, Naren. I was having a lot of back pain for almost more than a year, and it continued as a regular back pain and physiotherapies, some massages here or there, and nothing helped till I started getting a sensation in both my arms. And that's when my GP told me that, it's time, I think you should get MRI done, and we should find out why is this pain not going. And then, the tests followed, and finally, multiple myeloma was diagnosed. Initially, it was thought to be TB, but then, it went on to be discovered that it's multiple myeloma. And that was in January of 2020. And I immediately consulted a doctor recommended by our GP, a hemato-oncologist in Mumbai. And then I did start my treatment as the first line normal this thing of VRD was started, and in the first chemo dose itself, I got very high grade fever, which went on to become pneumonia, and I was hospitalized for 9 days. And I don't know right or wrong, but at the time of discharge, I was again given a second dose of VRD, and that put me back into a high grade fever and back into the hospital for the third time. At that time, quite a lot of tests were done that why is this happening, and is there any other infection? Many CTs, many sonographies, many blood tests. Later, it was found that it's nothing. So I was referred to another senior oncologist in Bombay, and therefore I went there. And since then, I've been with this doctor. So, while I was going through this dilemma of why is this fever coming, and, no doctor is ready to believe that it could be a side effect of the Velcade, the bortezomib. Except for the first doctor whom I went to, he said, Somesh, mostly in very, very rare cases, this may come from bortezomib. And that's what, even after many tests, my treating oncologist was told by the chest physicians and by general physicians or whoever those experts were, that it's probably a side reaction of bortezomib. But somehow my oncologist was not ready to take that as an answer. So he referred me to doctor for a second opinion, where he also tried the same bortezomib twice. And but after trying it 2 times, he shifted me to carfilzomib. And I shifted to carfilzomib in the March or April of 2020, and within the first 3 months itself, which was weekly cycle, within the first 3 months itself, by June 2020, I went into complete remission on the blood tests, right? Let me mention it because I'll come to my final stage why I'm mentioning. On the blood tests, it came in, that is the SEP and the FLC tests, and it came out to be, I was under remission. I completed my induction therapy till June, which is 4 cycles every month, 4 weekly cycles, 4 weekly doses, the next 3 cycles every month, that is till September. All this was on cofetuzumab, thalidomide, because I was moved from lenalidomide thinking that it may be causing maybe one of the causes for upper respiratory tract infection causing pneumonia or whatever. That was one of the probable things. So the doctor just wanted to rule it out. So I was on Carfil, thalidomide, and Dexa 40 mg for my induction therapy. Then from September 2020 onwards, still I'm on remission in the blood reports. I would just come to that very quickly. For the next 2 years, I went on induction therapy till from September 2020 to August 22, till August 22. And that is where even my cofetuzumab was considered safe to be stopped. And I went only on Len 10 mg once a day. Okay, after the KTD was over, induction, when I moved to maintenance, I was moved back to lenalidomide, and that has not caused any problems any which ways. Till March of 23, I was in remission on the blood reports. But February 23 onwards, I again started getting a severe back pain. But this time it was very different from the earlier back pain. And, it was a nerve compression. So once again, an MRI done, and there was a 70% loss of height between in D11, D12. So I was the spine restructuring or whatever that is called with titanium rods that was performed on the 31st of March 2020, and after that the biopsy was done, and there were active lesions in the D11 D12 section. So I went back to my doctor, and hence I was saying that I was in remission on blood reports. That was the reason why I mentioned thrice, because in between, for whatever this thing, I was never advised another CT or another bone marrow aspiration or whatever those tests were. I was going only on SEP FLC, these 2 tests, and so on blood reports till March it was coming normal, but at one particular place, D11, D12, of the one particular place that we only know of, because my PET CT is still not done. So the doctor advised me to go for radiotherapy. I just completed radiotherapy 10 days back, 30 gray into 10, over 10 cycles, not into, over 10 cycles is what I have taken for the D11, D12. Things seem to be good so far, so good. And that is for the focus therapy, focus treatment, or the but for the systemic treatment, the doctor has advised to start cofetuzumab once a week for 3 months. That is the induction that I had taken for 6 months, the same dose for 3 more months, and then we will see as we go forward. So that's where I am, long and short of it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take.
Yeah, maybe we'll go with questions. And what I think we should also talk about, Somesh, is what we've talked about in the past is about patient communities and how you interacted with doctors, how you get support, and what is the interaction between the patient and the patient community and the physicians. But I'll open it up if anybody has any questions or comments. So Somesh, I'll jump to, I don't have any, we've been talking quite a bit about all your treatments, and you've been telling me a lot of things like this, which is very interesting for me, because one, you're not from the biology field, right? So this is not something that you're familiar with, and you learned all of these terms that you use so easily. are something that you've learned. But what was your support system from both patient and doctors?
See, well, honestly, on the medical side, we know that for whatever reasons, hospitals in India or the doctors in India really cannot offer you so much of time that like, and I realized it only after interacting with my cousins overseas, and then that you should ask these questions to your doctors. But then we know that there are so many patients, and it would be unfair to the patients waiting behind if I just keep asking my questions, most of which are just anxieties. Because when you start as a patient, you honestly your awareness levels are so low that you don't even know what are the right questions to be asked to a doctor, right? And what are relevant and what is just coming as a patient anxiety, a patient fear. So those clarifications were that part surely was not there, nor is there any counseling center or any counselors attached to the hospitals that where you get treated, who would counsel you that how what exactly is going to happen, or going forward, what is the treatment, what is the drug, what is the role of each drug. So you have to do a lot of self-learning, and many of the times these self-learnings do become misguided. So when you say self-learning, Google is the only part, and there's more misinformation than information on Google. So you have to really pick and choose the right things, the relevant things. Don't become over anxious. But having said that, that is one part surely which either culturally we in India, patients don't ask, doctors don't answer, and nor is there any support system to counsel a cancer patient, and at least on the not only on the multiple myeloma, but even on the other side, that you don't find that kind of thing. But yes, when my dad was undergoing a oral onco surgery with doctor, that time we had one counselor called she was a onco counselor. So she did come home, but that was also more on personal contacts. It was not as a process that the hospital or the doctor is advising you to be means prepare you towards the surgery. So most of the times you just walk into the things, and then the side effects take over, and if you are an anxious person, the anxieties would only multiply manifold. So that is one part which has not really been there, which you have to strive for yourself. While I was doing this, my first hemato-oncologist, unfortunately, with whom I could not carry forward my treatment. So, he introduced me to a group called Myeloma Friends Charitable Trust. I think a few of you people from India, because that group has been active for 12 years now. It is being run by a myeloma patient, and it's focused only on myeloma and this thing. And we have a WhatsApp group, which is the support system, the only support system that we have. Presently, we means at least me, I would say. I don't know of anybody else. It's a good support system. Mr. who's a cancer patient, 2 times the bone marrow transplant patient himself, has been running it, and 2 doctors are also the trustees. So that's one support group where quite a lot of information on what should be the diet, what should be what are the kind of side effects that you're having, what should be the diet. Just as a clarification, no medical advice is offered either by the people running the group or by anybody else. And anybody who tries to be a doctor, any patient who tries to be a doctor, those posts are deleted by the administrator of the group, that we are not here to give medical advice. So, other than that, which is basically around the diet and the palliative care, the supportive medicines, there's not much of, that's the only online patient community that we have in terms of support. Balance everything, of course. patient's family does a big role, and they do play a big role. But when you are going to hospital every week, more than once a week, because once a week is your chemo, you have to go for blood tests, you will have some side effects. You are practically running from home to hospital every day. So it's very natural for your relatives, your support system in nuclear families like Bombay to also come under a lot of stress and collapse, if I may use that word, running about with you. So that is some part which is I would say not really institutionalized palliative care. And whatever a person does as per them. Many of the myeloma patients won't even be knowing about this group probably, and quite a lot of such things which can, if possible, provided institutionally, it would be far better.
Yeah.
One more thing, I opted not going in for ASCT because I was not really a high risk from that perspective. I don't know whether it is right or wrong. Doctors did guide me on that. I wouldn't say advice, I would say guided me on that. But the call was to me to go in for it now, or to I thought it's better I keep it for later. In my limited wisdom, I've taken that call. I have not gone for ASCT.
This is the advanced cell therapy. What?
No. Autologous stem cell transplant.
Autologous stem cell transplant. Okay.
Yeah, the bone marrow transplant, but
bone marrow transplant. Bone marrow transplant. Yeah. I think for this group, cell therapy, CAR T cell therapy is what we discussed. I think Immunil, ImmunoAct, Gaurav, others are developing these technologies for not necessarily multiple myeloma in the first phase, but ALL diseases. But again, maybe if anybody has questions for Somesh or comments.
Not a question, it's a comment. Somesh, thanks for sharing your story. It's been very inspiring, and I wish you health as you go forward.
Thank you.
As the group probably knows, we recently filed for marketing authorization approval for our CD19 CAR-T. And in the same month, we also requested for approval for clinical trials of our multiple myeloma CAR-T. So that clinical trial will be starting soon as well.
Very good.
On CAR-T, I know of a few patients on the group who have got CAR-T done with varying results. I don't think it's something very, very great. At least what I could gather on the group, they had gone to China or somewhere to get a CAR-T done. At least one patient, and one patient, I think he got his something CAR-T done related with some hospital in Singapore for multiple myeloma.
So I can give you a perspective for CD19. Okay. In addition to ImmunoAct and Immunil developing the product for CD19, a lot of physicians have been sending patients to the US for treatment with 19 CAR-Ts, including Yescarta and Kymriah. Some patients also go to Israel, and a few patients have gone to China. And in the case of CD19 CAR-T, there has also been some patients in India treated with a product from Malaysia.
Okay.
I'm not aware of the extent to, or rather the locations to which patients have been sent from India for multiple myeloma CAR-T.
Then maybe I'm getting confused between Singapore and Malaysia. Maybe that patient was just sharing his experience on the WhatsApp too. Maybe because something used to come from either Singapore, Malaysia. Now when you say Malaysia, I feel probably it's Malaysia. And then I think the drug was administered here or something like that. I'm not too sure. But yes, I know of only these two cases where CAR-T was taken by the patients for multiple myeloma.
Right. To your point, I'm aware that there are CAR-Ts approved in Singapore from a hospital development center.
Okay.
Not necessarily the Abekmas or the Karviktis from the West. So hospital origin CAR-Ts, I think, are available and approved in Singapore for myeloma and ALL.
No, so I think Mr. Somesh has made some very, very relevant points over here in the patient-physician interaction. And as a clinician, I think we are familiar and aware of these shortcomings which he has highlighted, because it's a matter of daily life for us. And in our center, like Tata Memorial Hospital, whatever he has said is compounded by a factor of 50 to 100 maybe, as far as time and interaction goes. So yes, very, very pertinent points. But I think, the high numbers and volume and shortage of time with the physicians is there, but it is definitely not a reason not to do anything about it. And I think it's only when you hear patient perspectives and patient voices, then that drives change. Because the incentive to drive change from the medical end is less, because the patient load is already so much, and like all those issues which is already pointed out. The incentive to change, I'm not saying it's correct that it is not there from the medical side. I'm just pointing out that it is, it's less. And worldwide, it has been, these kind of changes have been driven by patients and patient advocacy groups. So it is by giving voice to patients and by giving voice to their groups. And it requires, I think, educated and motivated and vocal and able to vocalize people probably like Mr. Somesh, who lead change by giving voice to this. So I think it's great that you give him a platform to speak over here. And I wish that there is more such occasions for him to take it forward. We have a lot to learn from the West, where patient advocacy groups have actually not only formed a support system for each other, but have led to policy change. Such groups are in the infancy in India, and I think we had another patient advocate for blood disorders, which you had brought on to this group earlier. Is that correct, Naren?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is something which we need more of. So Mr. Somesh, I would suggest, it's that the networks which you have formed, you should be more vocal. You should organize yourselves and probably come out with literature, come out with forums, ask from your doctors to attend the meetings which we have. I know for a fact that all conferences in the West, and including, I'm a hematologist, I said so, but after joining Tata Memorial Hospital, I had to give up the adult part of my practice. So now I don't treat myelomas anymore for the last 12 years. I have now restricted to pediatrics. But our Pediatric Oncology Society has a full session of patient advocates and a full day devoted to patient advocacy groups. And it's something which I think should be more and more a feature of all the adult medical oncology and hematology meetings too. You should ask for platforms for your voices to be heard over there. Coming down to the specific questions of CAR T-cell therapy, which is probably what this group is focused on. What you just heard is correct. What I can tell you is that not too many patients have received the myeloma CAR from India, but a lot more have received the CD19 CAR, whether from the US or Israel or China or Singapore. Regarding the case you were referring to, if this patient did not travel, he got it over here only. And it was from Malaysia. So they sent the cells to Malaysia. They got the CAR T manufactured over there and sent it back. So DCGI approval was required. Our drug regulator, which was given, and 2 or 3 cases have been done in other hospitals also of a similar nature. The problem with this is that we have no idea what this product is and what the results are with this product. We don't have the published literature to go by it. So that's the shortcoming. When it comes to Abecma or others, we know the literature, we know the results, we have all read the real world experience now, which is quite shoddy because of production pipeline issues. But anyway, those who have got it, how many have responded, how many are not responded, all that is in the public domain. On the other hand, somebody who needs a CAR T and can't obviously afford the it's natural that you will go for something like this. And I'm not saying you should not, but because that's the only thing you can get and you need it, well, so be it. I think this is a reminder to us, Immunil and us at TMH and ImmunoAct. We are not necessarily synchronous. We work together for one thing, but we work for other things also. We're all working on myeloma, which I think is a unmet need. Myeloma, we know, is a refractory disease. It sort of keeps coming back, and there are very few treatments which make it go away for a long time. And therefore, it's a situation where CAR T is required, and if it works well, it can have a big benefit to patients. So this is, I think, today's is a reminder that we need to go this way. Sorry for taking up your time. I'll be switching off the mic now.
Yeah, no, thank you for your comments, Gaurav. Somesh, any comment on Gaurav's?
I was just thinking that of what we know in the patient group, that CAR T presently is in India is not being given for multiple myeloma, and I think even if it does, it is after 2 or 3 lines of treatment which have already gone in. One being necessarily ASCT. I don't know how right it is. But from that perspective, Dr. Gaurav, I would just want to ask what do you think is, or if at all it's too premature, then it's a different story to ask this question. What is the right time to give CAR T? Is it better to give upfront? Like on ASCT also, there are multiple opinions. Some people say if age is on your side, if health is on your side, keep it for a later date. And some people feel no, if ASCT is given upfront, it gives far better remission or deeper remission, whatever.
So I think there are two questions over here. Easier to answer the ASCT question first, the autologous stem cell transplant. It's probably the standard of care right now, or at least it was when I was practicing adult hematology. And I'm not up to date on the literature, but patients whom I transplanted when I was in the Navy, and talking about now 10, 15, 18 years ago, are still doing well, and I've not required a further line therapy. Certainly have some did. And one few progressed very shortly after the transplant too. But there's hardly any other therapy in myeloma with which long-term remissions are known apart from transplant. So this is definitely the case. And it's also true that the older a patient gets, it's more difficult or sometimes more toxic, even if it's not more difficult to do a transplant. So that is definitely, these two things are generally true. Whether an individual patient should undergo a transplant or not is a decision which I think patient and doctor take together. So it's impossible to give advice to one particular person unless you are intimately involved with the management of that person. So I can just tell you these broad two generic truths. So now, having said that, it becomes easy to understand the role of CAR T, how it should be placed at transplant. Now, CAR T, we call it CAR T, but every car is different. It's just like the cars you see on the road. We call them all cars, but each car is different. Each one's performance is different. Its requirements are different, and the way it handles on the road is different. So it's the same with CAR T too. We have an approved therapy which we know the results of, and if a patient can afford that and can go for that, we can tell them that this is the number of patients who have taken it, and this is when they have taken it, and this is how they did, and then we can decide whether you can go for that or not. But when it comes to trials, when you're trying a new thing, so we made new cars. Immunil is making its own new car. I mean, it's in association with I think what has been developed in Spain. So already some results are available. So this is, but still it is a new product because it is in early phase trials. It is not approved yet. When you start with a new product, you have to generally start it when standard therapies are not working. Otherwise, it's ethically wrong to take a patient who is eligible for standard therapy into a new therapy which may have unknown risks. So when trials start, we take patients who have not whose disease has not responded or come back after the known standard therapies. So that's why it is mostly placed after the transplant, as far as myeloma is concerned. But if a patient is unwilling to go for transplant and the disease is coming back, then definitely that's again a line where CAR-T can become possible even on a trial. So that's how it's the advanced issue which you asked. I hope I could throw some light on that. Yeah.
So which basically means as of today, CAR-T is not a replacement to or as an alternate to ASCT. It is to be done after ASCT.
So what happens is that when the trials are done, they are done in this setting. Then once the approval comes, now if the manufacturer wants to say that the CAR-T is better than transplant, then he has to do what we call a phase 3 randomized control trial. In that, you have to take patients and equal, patients who could have gone for transplant. Let's say they have taken 2 lines of therapy and the disease is still back or not gone. And now the situation is clear cut that here a patient should go for transplant. And in this situation, they will take 150 patients on one side and 150 patients on the other side, randomize them through an algorithm so that there's no human taking that decision. It's an impartial algorithm. And one half will get, CAR-T, the other half gets transplant. And then you show head to head which one is working better. And then you say that, yes, CAR-T is better than transplant. So to say that, you need the evidence. I have not followed the myeloma trial updates, but I think phase 3 studies are ongoing for transplant versus CAR-T in myeloma. Myeloma is more difficult to do because myeloma, as you might have already learned by now, the options for first line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line therapy are staggering.
Many.
So there are so many options at each line that it becomes more difficult to design a myeloma trial to really say which one works better. But for lymphoma, I can tell you that the trials have been done by all the 3 leading CD19 manufacturers who did a randomized controlled trial between transplant and CAR-T, randomizing patients to either go for transplant or for CAR-T in a similar situation after 2 lines of therapy, and they found that CAR-T works better. In the ASCO meeting, which is just ongoing right now in Chicago, yesterday they released the results of the long-term follow-up, and they found that the overall survival, which we consider the gold standard, has been nearly 20 to 30% higher in those patients who receive CAR-T instead of a transplant. So for lymphoma, it is proven now, done and dusted. But myeloma, I think the evidence is still not there yet.
Because there are 2 points which normally, if I pick up from my multiple myeloma group, other than the regular side effects and what do I do for that, is patients do want to know when is CAR-T coming. I know nobody knows the advantages of it, but everybody has heard or read about it, and whatever misinformation on Google. So everybody wants to know when is CAR-T coming to India, and I don't know if the 2 patients who actually went out and got the CAR-T done were did it on their own decision, or it was, I don't know what prompted them. So that is one part. Of course, cost being one side of it, which surely is beyond a point. It would stop to be an option for many of the patients, right? Even for, I think, autologous stem cell transplant for multiple myeloma, there would be about 10, 15, 20% of the patients only opting for it. So that is one part, like, when is CAR-T for multiple myeloma coming to India? And the second, if I may add, is not related to CAR-T, is that when is the next generic medicine being made will be available in India? That is basically wanting to say that at India price, because today we have only bortezomib and carfilzomib, by the generic, by the Indian manufacturers. The moment you go from cofetuzumab to the third line, which is daratumab, the costs are exorbitantly high because of various reasons. So that is when will Dara be available in India for as a generic? So these are the two things. I think our group has also written some letters to the concerned ministries that they should be speeding up this, or at least on Dara give a concession on the GST or whatever. But these are the two points which go on in the patient group. I don't know whether you call it advocacy. Advocacy only becomes when you approach the government with authorized this thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so. With the CAR-T, when it is going to be available, I think Emmanuel is the right to answer that. Actually, he's already answered it. They've applied to the regulator for approval for this big commencing the trial. So at least some patients will be able to get it on trial. What we are doing is some distance away from trial. So maybe another year or two, maybe before we can bring what we are developing to trial, or what our group or others are doing. So that is the answer to that question. Then it's not available. And then when it comes to the drugs, which you're saying, I think you touched a far more complex question. When is Dara going to be available is, probably $1 billion question. Everybody's asking that question, oncologists, etc. I think our oncology community has made a lot of noise, especially about this drug and others also. These are very, very, very effective drugs, and the pharma companies which make them are not interested in marketing them in India. So they don't, until the pharma company, decides to file for marketing approval in India, how will it come to India? And we can't go and tell them, you come and file here. Our government can't force them to do that. So they can only incentivize them to do that. And they're not interested in the incentives because it is, they're making the money out there itself, So since the healthcare system over there, either insurance will cover it or the government will cover it. So they get the full cost back, and they can price it any way they want. So there's no marketing incentive. So and for our own pharma companies to make it is very challenging. That kind of infrastructure and investment which is required. Our pharma companies do a great job, but not at making new things. Very few of them make new things. That's why we thought, that cell therapy is probably better. So cell therapy is something which we can do over here. And that's why we went the cell therapy route. Exactly because the expensive drugs were not available in India, which caused very good responses in leukemia, lymphoma. So I thought, that why not develop the CAR instead? Because that's something we can do here. So that's
as we stand today, probably Dara is more expensive than ASCT.
True.
I'm not too sure because
transplant is a one-time procedure, so at least it's done. Dara has ongoing continuous costs.
Right.
Correct. But just information on the group, I don't know how much right or wrong. Dr. Reddy's is probably working on bringing Dara to India, is what at least our group knows, feels so. That's what they have been informed, and they have probably working on it.
So once the patent goes after 4 years, then you can allow generics to come. What these companies do is that just before that patent period is going to expire, they come up with a new indication and file a FDA approval for that, and that allows them to extend the patent for another 4 years. So whether Dr. Reddy is able to do it or not, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sorry, I'll not speak anymore. I'll give others. I'm sure others want to say something.
Gaurav, thank you. No, your comments were very valuable. I'm sure Somesh appreciates the physician point of view. Yeah. So I think if there are no further, are there any questions anybody else has or comments? If not, then Somesh, thank you so much. I've already connected you to some of the folks, but maybe I'll connect you to more people in this group individually. What I would recommend is, like, if you have the multiple myeloma group, some of us can come and maybe talk to that group and at least share the kind of things that we know about. At least I'll be happy to come and talk to that group. The kind of things that are being done both here, I'm currently in Philadelphia, both here in Penn and also in India. But feel free to reach out to any one of us. We are happy to help. And we also, like Gaurav said, really the patient advocacy and the patient-centric attitude and the has to be important in developing drugs in India also.
So I'll organize one. We have many webinars, not many, but two, 3 webinars in a year. And I think Gaurav made a point. Our group is quite visible to the medical community as well, both domestic and international. So they are doctors who know the group well, and when they come to India, our group does participate. Not only when they come to India, but even in Tata Memorial, they do participate in various seminars that they are kept. But we know that most of these groups are run by cancer survivors themselves. Be it We Cancer or that lady who runs a very good group with Tata Memorial. All these patient support groups are most of the times created and run by the patients themselves, the cancer patients themselves. So that is one part. Last thing on the patient side, I would say, I don't know whether it's relevant. Very quick one is that, I did my first 3 treatments, first 3 doses in a hospital setup. And then I moved to doctor setup. And what I really found that took away 50% of my load and 100% of my family's load is the very process. I know hospitals cannot say just come in, lie down on the bed and we give you a chemo and you go off. But when the admission and the discharge becomes so very simple, like what is there in this private daycare, if I may call it as, it does take away a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress from you as a patient, and more from from the person who's supporting you and taking you to the hospital and all that. So, if that part, particularly when it's a weekly cycle, if it was once in a month, once in 3 months, then it's a different story. But when it's a weekly cycle for 6 months, and this is any patient would love to have. So I don't know what is the solution to that.
Yeah, at least voicing your requirements is useful. Thank you so much, Somesh. This was very, very helpful for all of us. And as Rita has mentioned in the chat, thank you and good luck with all your treatments going forward.
Thanks. Thank you.
We look forward to meeting you in person soon sometime.
Yeah. And I would do organize a meeting with the multiple myeloma friends trust. So we'll do that.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for calling in.
Fine. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.